Well, hey there, all you tri freaks and geeks. This is Coach Brett with another great episode of Zen and the Art of Triathlon. On this week's episode, we are going to talk about how to do a proper FTP test on your bike. FTP, functional threshold power. That is the big number you want on your bike. It's a very important number to know, and we're going to cover how to test it correctly and also how to test it incorrectly, and not many people know how to do it right. So we're going to cover the right way to do it, and then also how to use that number in racing. And then we have an email question about what heart rate range to be in to burn the most fat. I have tips on how to get water out of your wheels. You can get water. It's really crazy in your aero wheels, in the carbon, up in there, or in the fairings, and the easiest way to get those out. And then also, I spent a day answering questions on Twitter, all about triathlon training. Covers everything, even CrossFit. And I will reread those questions and answers to you, and that and a whole bunch more. We're in Ohio for youth nationals, so there'll be lots of that as well. Oh, and an interview with the guy that won a local triathlon that I was just in, and it's a lot of fun. So that and a whole bunch more coming up now on the ZenTri podcast. Here we go.
You are listening to Zen and the Art of Triathlon.
All right, hey, all you nasty little tri-freaks out there. This is Coach Brett with another episode of ZenTri, and like I just mentioned, we are on the road in Ohio. I spent 2 days driving in a car with 6 other people. How many of them were children? 3 children, 4 adults, driving from Texas all the way to Cincinnati, through Kentucky and Tennessee, a little bit of Arkansas even. And it's been quite the trip, 2 days nonstop driving, staying at hotels and trying to get workouts in spite of it all. We've got one of the kids is at that perfect age where he asks if we're there yet about every 30 minutes. And we're all in one Suburban. Kai has it's Kai and then 2 friends that are also on his kids' triathlon team that are doing nationals here. And they, the thing is at their age, they don't have to qualify for nationals. If you just want to go, you can go. And so we're taking advantage of that. We went last summer too, and it's a lot of fun. And at this age, it's cool to see the older kids that they can identify with a little bit, doing just all-out racing, and them getting to be a part of it is pretty cool. But we're all in a Suburban with the with 4 bikes on the back, and then some like one of those tents folded up on top. And at one point we're going through a small town in Kentucky because there was a construction slowdown that was going to take an hour delay. So we did, around using Google Maps, went around it through this little town. And as we were going through this tiny little town in Kentucky, we were laughing to ourselves because there was a guy standing on the street corner that apparently we were so bizarre looking with this Suburban with all this gear hanging off of it that he stood there, his mouth opened up agape, and then his cigarette hung from his lower lip. And he just stared at us, frozen, but his head on a swivel as we slowly went by. And taking turns driving and all that. Figuring out how to work out in hotels is always a struggle. We stayed in Memphis, and the hotel had a rooftop pool, and I kind of played around in the water there with a drag chute because the pools are small, so you can lengthen out the length of a pool by adding a drag chute. And then I lifted weights and ran on the treadmill. The weight room, the fitness rooms a lot of times don't open until 6 a.m., but I'm in there at 5, whatever, with the lights off, running anyway, in spite of it all, and doing a little bit of weightlifting. You don't have to do much time weightlifting to feel really good. So that's our adventure so far. We'll have the race isn't for another few days. So on the next episode, we will cover a little bit of the audio from the racing and kind of see how that goes down. And let's, like I said, we're going to cover FTP and a whole bunch of other things in this show. But we do have a little bit of triathlon news. So let's go ahead and go to the press room. Here we go. All right, the biggest news out there right now is about Ironman Canada. That's the one on the west coast of Canada in Whistler. It's absolutely beautiful, rugged. It's an amazing location. I did it last summer with some friends. And last summer it was the pro field was men's only pro field with the promise that the women's pro field was going to be the only one this year. And that's what happened. We had female pros, and Lindsay Corbin won it. And this is cool because Lindsay Corbin has been struggling the past couple years with just random setbacks of time penalties and just stuff that's irritating and suboptimal, as Chrissy Wellington would say. And it was her as a strong contender, and also Rachel Joyce. And Rachel Joyce had the worst sports injury of them all, which is pregnancy. Takes you out for a year or more. And that's a joke. It's not a sports injury. But the great thing is Rachel actually was back at the starting line. I think Rachel Joyce did Ironman Boulder recently and did really well. And so now she was going to try to get some more points to get to Kona with this Whistler race. And again, this is only women's pro field, no men pro field in this thing. So you can be a man and do the race, you just can't race it as a pro. All right, so the details are, and this is good stuff about how to win a longer race. Lindsay Corbin, who won, came out of the water in seventh place. So people out there that are thinking that they got to win the swim, no, that's how you lose the race. You just kind of need to keep up with everybody in the swim and not fall back too far. And seventh place on the swim is very typical of an Ironman win. 4.5 minutes, no, almost 5 minutes behind the winner of the swim. Isn't that interesting? And then on the bike, came up to second place, but still 6:55 behind Rachel McBride, who's also a famous badass pro. And then during the run, surged to the front, as Slow Twitch says, with the women's best run. There you go, with your 3:08. It's a real hilly run. 3:08 marathon to finish in 9:17. And that just shows you how hard this race is. 9:17 is sounds really fast, and it is, but for an Ironman, compared to like a flat, fast Ironman, that's kind of slow, which just shows you, I think it's the 5th hardest Ironman course out there. And she won with a 7-minute and 43-second margin of victory over, second was Jen Annette, and third was Rachel McBride. No news here if they saw any bears out on the course like we did last year, but that was always interesting. Rachel Joyce, I was kind of following the whole thing, and Rachel Joyce fell behind on the bike really bad and then caught up on the run big time, but still not enough. And let's see what Rachel's time was. Rachel has been on the podcast. Rachel started out as a big-time age grouper and then worked her way up to being a pro and being a perennial podium finisher or top 10 at Kona, Ironman Hawaii. Yeah, here's the thing I was looking for, is at one point on the bike, Rachel Joyce was 18 minutes behind the lead. That is a lot. So I wonder what was going on with Rachel on the bike. If she had some bike trouble. She was riding one of those really cool, super cool new Cervelos, the Cervelo Beam bike, which, it's starting to get to be time for all the bike releases for next year. As we get closer to Kona, these companies start dropping hints and showing what bikes they've got coming. I think it's about time for Trek to come out with something new. Trek kind of stayed out of that war last year with all the beam bikes and the drop tube the down to taper like the Diamondback does and the Cervelo does. And yeah, so that was that news in Ironman. And then just a little scheduling and location tip. It looks like Interbike is moving to Reno, Tahoe next year, because it's been in Vegas for, gosh, I don't know how many years. Interbike is where they show off a whole lot of cool bike stuff. Love that thing. I want to go to it someday. And I've never really been into going to Vegas, but maybe, go to Reno, Tahoe for it someday. That would be pretty cool. All right, so we're going to cut the news short with that because we got a whole lot of stuff to cover. And I'm going to skip any sponsorship mentions until we get done with the most important thing. We're going to talk about FTP, functional threshold power or protocol. I get kind of caught between the two. But what happens is people are always asking, what's your FTP? Because once you know your FTP, and this is a number, it'll be anywhere between, 150 and 400 watts, depending on how powerful you are on the bike. And watts is measured with a power meter on your bike one way or another. And the higher that number is, the more you can predict what your finish time, it's very highly correlated with your finish time in bike racing. And then once you know this number, you can do a lot of things smarter the longer your race is, which is very, very, very important in Ironman because it's not just a long bike race, it's also a very long bike race with a marathon on top. And you really need to stay on top of how much you've beat up your legs before you get started on that run. People overbike like crazy, and if you know this number, you can do exactly the right thing on the bike. Overbiking is where you bike too hard because you forget that there's a run after this, or you conveniently forget about how hard that run is. You get all caught up in the moment on the bike. So if you know your FTP number, then you can watch some other numbers while you're on the bike and then bike correctly. I consider it so useful that it's practically cheating, and it definitely can take the fun out of racing because now you're not going by feel, you're just going by numbers. But crossing the finish line, having your best race you've ever had is also an amazing feeling as well. So you want to go there if you can. And let's talk a little bit about the wrong way to do an FTP test. Oh, I also wanted to mention, once you know your FTP, then you can do workouts smarter to increase your FTP, because there's a type of workout, well, there's lots of different workouts where it's based, what you put out now, right this minute, is based on what your known FTP is. And if you know your FTP pretty accurately, then those workouts are very impactful and can be greatly improving and can lift your FTP number pretty quickly over time. So let's hop on over to how the classic wrong way of doing an FTP test is out there that you can Google and find pretty much anywhere. And that is to do a 20-minute test going all out. And then once you have your 20-minute test, then you take 95% of the average during that test, and then that is your FTP for an hour, which is pretty crazy that you can do for an hour 95% of what you can do for 20 minutes. And it turns out that this kind of test seems to be made for people like on track bikes or people riding completely on flats, people that are going to be doing like a half hour or an hour race, not for people that are doing long races over varying terrain, rolling terrain with tailwinds and other stuff, downhills mixed in. Because what happens is you quickly figure out when you take these 20-minute tests ways to game the test, ways to milk the most watts out of your test. Now, a watt, we need to cover that, is a very convenient way of talking about power. So a watt is torque times revolutions. So it's a measure. There's a meter that goes somewhere in your bike that can stress how much force you're applying, and it's force times how many revolutions, or torque times how many revolutions equals force, and then that's your watts. It's a lot like horsepower, where you look in your car and you've got the RPMs, and then and that would be your cadence, and then the torque coming out of the engine is the same thing as torque, how hard you're pressing down on a pedal stroke. It's universally used throughout engineering and physics, so it's a very common number. So it's unfortunate that currently power meters are still priced where it's considered an extra, and that you don't get one unless you're a very, very, very serious cyclist. And it's unfortunate because it's one of those things that if you got one, it would turn you into a very good cyclist very quickly and lift you up out of that kind of no man's land of trying to get better but not knowing how. And so it's one of those investments that can make a huge difference and change you from being a very average cyclist into being a very great cyclist. But it's also one of those things that people, the average cyclist, just says, oh, I don't want to buy that. I can just go out and train on my own. But it turns out not having a power meter is a huge limiter in your training because it tells you so much stuff. It's really great. I always say not having power on your bike is like going to the gym and lifting weights without numbers on it. You don't know how much weight you're actually lifting, and then the next workout you go to a different gym with no numbers on the weights as well. And then the next workout you go to another different gym, and you don't know how many you don't know the numbers that are supposed to be on the weights. Can you imagine? Like, I don't know what I'm lifting, and you don't know if you're improving. You don't know if what you're doing is improving you, and you don't know how much work you're actually doing. And in the real world, when you're out there bike riding, speed is not really all that great of a number to know, and your heart rate. Because speed can vary a lot based on the terrain and based on the wind and the heat and everything. And then also your heart rate is the same thing. But what you can do is you can pair your heart rate with your watts and your speed with your watts, and then you know how effective the work that you're putting out, because watts is your work. And if you have these other things like heart rate and speed, then you can tell how hard you're working to get that work done, and then also the impact on your body, and then the result of the speed, how efficient you are at getting distance over time out of that work that you're doing. Okay, so that's a whole lot of stuff, all about why you should get a power meter. I've had one for, 10, 15 years, and if mine broke, I would immediately go get another one. And that's a good sign of that these things are awesome. And they're coming down in price ever constantly, but still a good one. You might be talking $1,000, maybe 600 to 1,000. But again, it's one of those things that'll lift you up and out of the no man's land of not knowing what you're doing so much. But let's talk about the test. Get back on course here and talk about the test itself. So they say go out and do a 20-minute test as hard as you can. And the way that you can start gaming this is you realize that it's easier to put out a higher number, to put out more work when you're going into harder resistance. And this is because it's easier to find watts when you're going uphill or into a headwind. And this is because the watts are more presenting themselves against your crank, and you don't have to search for them as much. So think about this. When you go uphill, do you know how like every pedal stroke is the hill is presenting you with more work? And it's super easy to spin the cranks and find resistance, right? Now, if you ride downhill, then you might notice that it's actually harder to find resistance in the cranks, because every pedal stroke that you make, your bike lurches forward downhill, and gravity assists in that lurch. And then the gap between the pedal stroke and then the next pedal stroke is bigger, because the bike has lurched forward a little bit more, and then your pedal stroke has to find the bike to work against, find the ground to work against, a little bit harder to find that because the distance that the bike has lurched forward. But if you're going uphill, you push the bike with your pedal crank and with your pedal crank, with your pedal, and then gravity immediately grabs your bike, and it never even leaves. It goes, hey, no, and throws the bike right back at you. And so as soon as you finish that one stroke, the bike is pushing back against you again. So those little gaps the difference in the gaps between pedal strokes when going uphill with resistance, the resistance that uphill gives you versus when you go downhill and gravity pulling the bike away from you. As Jordan Rapp said, he's a pro, he was on the show before, he said, it's easier to find watts when you go uphill because the watts are being pushed against you for you to find. And so a FTP test that is let's say an FTP test that is uphill is a really good reflection of the watts you could put out if your race was uphill. But your race is not uphill. Your race is actually most likely beginning and ending at the same elevation. And yeah, it has uphills in it, but it also has downhills in it. And it could have mountainous terrain, rolling terrain, flat terrain. It can have all those different types of terrain in it. And your test isn't like that, especially if you condense your test down to 20 minutes to get an effective test. And also the ego wants you to have as high a number as possible. You are going to go harder than what you would think. And then also your watts are going to be artificially high because you're going to start searching out into the wind and uphill to make those numbers actually high. And then what happens is you go out on the race course on race day with this number, thinking that 300 watts is your FTP, and then trying to base your race off of that number when 300 watts was your FTP when going uphill. It's not your number when going on rolling terrain. It would be more like 290 or 280 on rolling terrain. Now, the other thing is that doing something for 20 minutes is completely different than doing something for an hour. And it's actually completely different than doing something for 5 hours, which is what an Ironman would be. 5 hours or more. And many of us out there are physiologically built as sprinters. I'm one. And if you were better in sprint sports and burst speed sports and strength sports and doing longer stuff, there's people that are built for that better. The longer it goes, the better that they do. When you do something for 20 minutes, what you can do in that test is nowhere near as closely correlated with what you could do for 5 hours as you think. And especially, there's a whole thing with 4 or 5 hours out. Now that's going to start including fueling, how good you are at fueling, hydrating, and pacing yourself, not going too hard up hills and then blowing up, drinking enough water, how well nailed you've got your salt intake and your carb intake, and not getting sick to your stomach, and can you hold that bike position for for 5 hours, So again, the 20-minute test is just so far out there that it's if I would do a 20-minute test, I'd knock 10% off that number, compared to doing something for 5 hours, trying to correlate the two of them, and 10% more off of it than what you would stretch it out for a 5-hour race. So I remember when I went out for some of my first FTP tests, it was, hey, warm up for 20 minutes, do a couple of real short, few minute long intervals going pretty hard, and that really warms up your legs. And then go and bike, all out for 20 minutes. And so I remember going on a map and like going, okay, for that 20 minutes, I can ride around here for a while, and I can do my little warm-ups. Okay, and then to get the most out of the test, then I'm going to do this 20-minute, where can I find a 20-minute stretch that is net uphill, that's in general uphill, so I can make sure that I can see how many watts I can really put out. And so I had, I don't know, back then, FTP of like, it was probably 260 or something like that. And I was like, okay, there we go, after that test. And then it was years later where I was reading up on how to do Ironman training and smarter through Training Peaks. And the gold standard for how to do a true FTP test is completely different. So what, this is more for Ironman. They said basically throw that FTP test, that 20-minute thing, out the window, because that's just going to give you problems. And instead, look at a long bike ride that you've done with a power meter and a heart rate monitor, and that also happens to have similar terrain over what your race course is going to be like, and find an hour out of that bike ride, and that is and out of that hour, find the one that's the most like what your race is going to be like, and then on top of that, make sure that hour, you can go out on this ride with this intention that you're going to ride an hour about like this, with your medium zone too. So kind of like your pace that you can talk at, that you're fueling well, where everything feels fine. You're not really pushing it. You're just kind of just riding kind of casually and having a nice time. Then on Training Peaks or one of these software programs, you select with the cursor on your mouse, you select that hour of race. And in Training Peaks, if you select an hour, and I think on Strava might do it as well, if you have the Strava Pro edition, then you can select an hour of that workout, and it'll summarize the hour for you. And in there is your watts. Now, that's not your FTP. That's actually your watts that you held while feeling fine for an hour out there. And so, like, if I did that recently, right now, it'd probably be around 215, 220 watts, right? And then if I divide that by 90%, then that'll tell me my actual hour-long maximum that I could do. And that ends up being around 300. And the whole point is you want your number that you can target for longer races to actually be a reflection of what you are doing, feeling good over longer races. And that a 20-minute test is so far off from a longer race that it's just going to get you in trouble. It's actually not all that great. Now, would a 20-minute test be a good reflection of what you could do on a track bike for 30 minutes or for an hour? Yeah, it'd probably be pretty close. But then once in a race, you start dealing with coasting downhill and having a tailwind, and then also having the limitations of fueling and hydration and heat and all that other stuff. You need to know more. It's more important for you to know how well you do what's stretched out over time. And then once you have that number of what you do stretched out over time, then you can use that number to plan the rest of your day. And the great thing is if you're training correctly, then you are actually going out on longer rides, 3-hour rides, 4-hour rides, and maybe even 5-hour rides. And you should be able to select, I wouldn't even say an hour, you could select huge chunks of that. You could select a 3-hour chunk of that and then go, okay, what did I average over 3 hours of this ride? Once I got my warm-up out of the way, and like this one section over here where we stopped to refill our water and pee and stuff like that, like I had a good chunk of casual pace on my bike. What is the summary of that? What is the average of that? And goes, the computer says, you did 200 watts. And you're like, hey man, I did 200 watts, because you got to respect the run. You've got to totally respect the run. You can't go too hard on the bike and then think that you're going to be able to run well. It just doesn't happen. So what was your average watts? Now see, again, that is not your FTP. Instead, it's actually the number of what you could hold and bike casually over long periods of time. Now you can divide that by 90% and then come up with your FTP, right? And then you don't need to do an FTP test, because the problem with doing an FTP test, of doing all out for 20 minutes, is while it's convenient, it's also very inconvenient, because it's going to knock you out of your training game for a week because you're completely blown out. Now, once you know your FTP number, you can do things like, oh wait, I need to back up a second. I've been saying 90%. I meant 75%. You take a big chunk of time and then get your average watts for that. And then about 70, you divide that by 75%. So let's say 220 watts divided by 0.75, and that you come up with around 300 watts. So you take that and divide by 0.75% and 0.75, and then that gives you your what would be your FTP if you went all out for an hour. And oh my gosh, you never want to go all out for an hour. Can you imagine the recovery for that? That'd be nuts. Okay, but now once you know this number, your FTP, so like I said, mine is around 300. So that means that I can plan for how hard to go during all kinds of races. And there's recommendations out there. And it depends on how fit you are and how good of a cyclist you are. But for an Ironman, typically 75% of FTP, if you've got some experience and you know what you're doing, is good for your Ironman bike pace. 80% to 82, 80, maybe 85 for a half Ironman, probably more around 80, 85% for a half Ironman is of your FTP is what you should be going. And then for an Olympic distance race, I'd have to go look. Now you're starting to get into just racing by feel, but maybe 90% of FTP, maybe 92. Anyway, there's all kinds of charts out there to show that what you should go. So that's why it's really handy to know your FTP, because with that number, you can plan how hard to go during a race. And what you do is you look to keep that average. So let's say for me, for an Ironman, it was 220 watts. So what I would try to do is average 220 watts on the bike while I'm riding. And while I'm doing that, try to keep my heart rate in zone 2. And if my heart rate starts climbing, even though I'm only putting out 70, 75% of FTP, if my heart rate starts going through the roof, that means I'm getting dehydrated. That means I'm getting overheated. something's making my body work extra hard to put out those watts. And then if my heart rate starts dropping and I can't seem to keep up the power of 75%, even though it's only 75% of my FTP, then that means I'm under fueling, or I'm not drinking enough water and my fuel isn't working. That's another one that is if your power's low and your heart rate's low and you feel sick, then you're not drinking enough water with your fuel. And you need to back off and drink water, a lot of water for a while. So, again, that's how you use heart rate with your watts, and those two together can actually let you have just an amazing bike ride and really enjoy yourself out there. Now, there's a small problem where the longer the bike ride, the more your average time builds up, and you can't tell if you're over biking or under biking watts because you've got 3 hours worth of average built up. And to move the needle to change that average number takes a lot of something higher or lower, a lot higher or a lot lower than your average to make it show up on the average. And that's bad because you want your average to be accurate, and at least you want to be on the ball with that. So what I do is I watch the average watts for my current lap, and then I have my lap reset every 20 or 30 minutes. You can do it automatically or you can do it by hand if you want. And then it's starting with a fresh calculation all over again. And if you start biking too hard, it shows up immediately in your average that you're like, oh, going too hard, going too soft, whatever you're doing. But then again, that average starts to get stale after 20 or 30 minutes, and it's hard to get that average to move quickly. So you could get into problems there. So just hit the reset button again and again and again, every 20, 30 minutes, or again, automatically. You can have your bike computer do that. And it's actually kind of fun because you can get pretty good at it. Let's say you're targeting 200 watts for your average on your per lap, and let's say you finish a lap and it had a little bit more hills in it, and you went a little bit harder than you thought you were going to, so you ended up with 202 watts, 203 watts at the end of your 30 minutes, and now it's recycled over. It started the lap over again. So what I do is this time to average it all out, I aim on this lap to do 198 watts. So if I went a few watts over on my last lap, then this lap I do a few watts under. And it really works. It's really, really cool. And so you keep trying to, even it out. And again, if you're wrong on your numbers and you don't go hard enough, you're like, man, well, what if I don't get the most out of my bike? Dude, you will make it up on the run, okay? You can always underbike just a little bit and then make it up big time on the run. Like we just saw with that Lindsey Corbin thing. 6 minutes back on the bike at T2. And then the fastest split on the run and beat everybody by a big chunk of time, right? That's the whole point with the bike, is you want to bike correctly or actually underbike just the tiniest bit, and then you'll actually go faster during the race. All right, so that is basically the whole story behind FTP and how to actually have a good FTP test. So again, a 20-minute FTP test is not made for longer distance bike racing, and especially for longer distance bike racing with a run after it. A sampling of one of your rides or many of your rides, and sample those rides, get an average for the samples that are a reflection of what you should do on race day, and then use those numbers as your targets. If it's a nice, happy, you feel good, and not pushing it too hard, zone 2, that chunk of time, an hour or more, hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, I've been known to grab like 2 hours out of a section out of one of my 3-hour bike rides and go, okay, I felt good during this bike ride, and I felt when I got off the bike that I could easily have run a long time afterwards. My fueling was good, everything was good, it was casual. It was a lot like what I'm going to do out there what I'd like to do out there in the race. What was my average watts during that? It's like, okay, it was 220 watts, and then I'll go, okay, just to be safe during my race, I'm probably going to target 215 watts or 210 watts, because still a 2-hour sample is still not a 3-hour sample, or it's not an Ironman. It's not a 5-hour sample of what you can do out there. And then that number is what you should target during your race for an Ironman. And then you can use that number to calculate what your FTP would be. And then knowing what your FTP is, you can reverse engineer back what you should do in other races that are shorter, longer, whatever you want to do. All right, that's enough of that. Let's take a break and mention a sponsor. All right, let's take a break from the program and talk about one of our great sponsors, Amrita Bars, A-M-R-I-T-A, Amrita Bars. You can get, let's see, what is the discount? I know the discount code ZEN. Get 15% off your order at amritahealthfoods.com on Amrita Bars using the discount code ZEN. And what are Amrita Bars? Oh my gosh, they are the best. They are a longtime sponsor of ZenTri because I've been using them for a long time. The owner and founder is a cyclist, and he wanted to make bars that actually give you plenty of energy, are healthy, very, very healthy, and go down easily. And he nailed it. He nailed it a long time ago. This stuff is so good. They have seeds instead of nuts, so if you have a nut allergy, they're wonderful for you. They have all kinds of awesome flavors, and they're a bit soft and chewy, so you don't get dry stuff all in the back of your throat whenever you're doing 30 miles an hour and you take a bite of one of these things. The way I eat it is I open up the end of the wrapper and while I'm riding, or sometimes before the ride, and then I squeeze out like as much, a third of the bar, maybe a quarter of the bar, and take a bite, and then drink it with some water. And it's got cardamom in it, and that's a soothing spice that's awesome for the stomach. And it's just amazing stuff. And on top of that, they have really cool kit. They've got some of my favorite actually of cycling jerseys out there, and they got a triathlon kit, cycling jersey, socks, like cycling socks, running socks. They're black with Amrita written across them in this really cool font and color. It's really awesome. So you can get yours by going to amritahealthfoods.com and looking for a place where you check out your order and typing in the code ZEN, and you get 15% off. That's huge. That's huge. All right, let's go back to the show and see what's up. Here we go. All right, let's have a little bit of fun here and pull in the audio from the interview with Clayton, who is 26 years old, I think, and he did the kids triathlon. He's definitely not a kid, but he did the kids triathlon where the parents and or an adult paired up with the kids, and he's Kai's triathlon team's coach. He's a grad student at Texas A&M. I think he's working on his PhD. Soon he'll be Dr. Clayton, and he won overall for the adults. I think a kid, like a 15-year-old kid, went faster than he did. There's some real phenomenal athletes around Austin, and Austin's one of those towns that pros end up living in because it's really, really good for triathlon training. And this interview is after the race, talking with him about some shenanigans that went on during the race. It's pretty funny. Here we go. All right, I am at the Hill Country Tri, Saturday, July 22nd, just south of Austin, a little town called Kyle. And it's a kids triathlon where also the parents can go later in another wave after the kids, and or adults can go, and you get teamed up with a team. So I'm on Team Kai, and then they compare the kids. They combine the kids and the parents' time if you want to do that sort of thing. It's really about the kids, but it also lets the parents race too, I guess. But anyway, I'm here with that, and it's an okay race so far. There's lots of restrictions that are making it a little difficult at times, but yet again, I show up at one of these races where as an adult, I'm like, don't take it too seriously because it's got kids and stuff in, and the bike racked right next to mine is a Trek Speed Concept 9 series that's all blacked out with Zip 808s on it. I'm like, all right, I guess it's on again. But anyway, I'm feeling, we stayed at a hotel and they got a phone call at midnight that our dog was barking and the police were at our house. Our dog had gotten outside and was just barking into the darkness, and the neighbors, Kona's such a big black lab, that's too loud, and I agree with them. So we had to call the pet sitter, go over there in the middle of the night. So I ended up getting a crappy night's sleep, so I actually don't feel all that hot. And I did a bulletproof coffee this morning, and even though I've done them before, plenty of times, lots of times before, for some reason, I'm having to poop my brains out. I've probably been to the bathroom 6 times, 7 times. But what is cool is we've got a kid's slide right over here next to me. The 5 and 6-year-old kids are already done. I think 200, the adults race is the same as the 11 to 15-year-olds. Got a 200-yard swim, 6-something mile bike ride, and a 1 point almost nothing mile run. And that's us. So I think I'm going to get ready and get ready to go. And we'll have more afterwards. They do have a nice big green area. We can sit up here and chill out. Okay, we'll see how Kai does. And the whole kids triathlon team is here. It's a lot of fun. All right, that's it. Be right back. All right, I'm here with the only person that beat me on the swim. Clayton, what's up?
The coach Clayton Crewthirds.
How old are you?
26.
26. You and I had first and second place on the swim, 200 yards.
1-2 in the swim.
With lane ropes made out of noodles.
It was in a pool. It felt more like open water.
13 to 15.
Dude, you came the other way.
Third place today, Amelia Villela.
You came the other way, and I thought you were in my lane.
Yeah.
Second place, Briley Bell.
It was a double snake swim. You had a snake swim up and down the pool, and then
in
snake
first
swim
place
across
today,
the pool.
it's going to be Lexi Harkrider.
As the lane ropes waved back and forth.
Yeah, so the lane ropes are real loose. So I thought you were in my lane. I really did. I was like, oh, what is he doing? He's in the wrong lane. And then I sighted and then saw that the lane ropes, of course, they're like all over the place. Yeah. So the swim was good.
Yeah, solid swim. Very short. I wish all swims were that short.
You decided to ride your road bike, which I think was even
all
choice.
Right. Male 11 to 12-year-olds. Third place today, Aiden Crowell.
I made a game week
Second
decision.
place, Reese Vanderson.
Game week decision to go with the road bike.
And in first place today, the male 11 to 12-year-olds, Sean Wartink.
I like to think that it paid off for me. I was in and out of the turns quick on the straightaway. I probably lost a little bit of time, but
then the really funny thing is there's a course judge out there, but you thought he was just a commuter cyclist.
I made a friend out on the course. Apparently he was the race official. I was unaware.
So you gave him some choice words?
I had some adult words with him. He didn't really appreciate it, but...
He told you to, why don't we talk back about this one that we disqualify you?
At the end of the race, but since he was going about 15 miles an hour, it was going to take him a while to meet me back at the end of the course.
That was funny. Okay, and then on the run, let's see. There's a hill on the run twice.
Yeah, it was
pretty decent little hill.
A little out and back, 2-lap. So you went race to the top of the hill, run back down, race to the top of the hill again.
Yeah. And then...
Great fans out there of all ages.
Then we did the typical thing where we look at the results and realize people had...
Yeah.
And probably unintentionally, I'm sure, cut the course. That's the problem with looping courses, right?
Yeah. It was a 3-loop bike course and a 2-loop run course. Apparently people struggle with both of those facts.
Yeah, and we're like... So you and I did like 14, was it around like 14 minutes?
Right on 14 and a half.
So 14 and a half minutes, and then somebody did 11 or 10.
They were sub 11 on the bike, and that seemed a little quick.
Yeah.
A little quick.
So, well, congratulations, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Congrats to you. We had a great day. All the kids had a good day. It was a beautiful day for a race.
Yep.
All's well that ends well.
All right. Thanks, man.
Third place today for the 13 to 15, Team Bromley, David and Taryn.
Second place, Von Blank Racing, Brett and Kai Blankner. And in first place today, ladies and gentlemen, in the 13 age group, Palm Cinnamon Squirrel Flaming Hot. Is there anything after the hot? Oh yeah, I think they got
beat by Cinnamon Squirrels.
Dang it! The team of Faith and Sarah Dazzo.
Mom Dasso's Palm Cinnamon Squirrel. Oh, you got.
All right, super cool. So the kid that Clayton got paired up with, she and Clayton ended up getting first overall with an adult-kid combo, and then Kai and I got second with an adult-kid combo, and Clayton and I were pretty close. I think I got seventh overall or sixth overall. I had that thing where it's a looping course, and some people didn't do all the loops, and then a mess trying to figure out the actual timing and all that stuff like that. But it doesn't really matter that much. That happens almost every race, and this race was mostly about the kids. And I like this idea where they do the adult stuff mixed in with the kids' races, because then it gets the adults that aren't active thinking about doing it, and it gets the adults that are active more interested in taking their kids to that race, so that everybody's having fun together. And the kids love comparing their times versus the adults and seeing who's faster and all that stuff. It's pretty cool. I really, really like it. See if you can find one of those in your area. Okay, next we have questions and answers from Twitter. I need to do this every once in a while. This is really cool. It's an honor being out there and people thinking that I'm a good resource to answer questions. And these are exactly the kind of question answer things that I like to do. I was captive in the vehicle for on day 2, I think it was. And I said, hey, anybody have any questions about triathlon, let me know, and I will answer them via Twitter all day. Hit me up. And I got a bunch of them that were pretty good. Let me hop over to where those were. I can't believe that I actually lost it here. Where'd it go? Pulling it up. And I use Hootsuite for those that want a good Twitter client that's way more powerful than Twitter itself, which seems to be dumbed down. But let's see. Oh wow, we got a bunch. Let me scroll down. What was your pace per 100? Oh, this gets really interesting. Somebody asked, Mark Mundy asked, my friend got half Ironman in September. Okay, I'm gonna not try to correct anybody's English too much on this, because it is Twitter. It's nobody's fault of syntax and language on these things, because we're all trying to cram in stuff in 140 characters. My friend got half Ironman in September. She needs help with veggie drink on the bike. The first thing that comes to mind is why is veggies? Why is somebody drinking a veggie drink during a half Ironman? Half Ironman, you start really pushing yourself. Yeah, I wrote, veggie? What does she want in it? Fiber is usually a problem when working out. And Mark says she's worried she will burn out. And I said, not if she takes in enough calories that are extremely easy to digest. No fiber, no fat, very low protein, if any. And that's what you should do. And somebody asked Carson Marston mentioned, hey ZenTri, you mentioned a few shows ago, but what is the best tire for triathlons? Also, is it worth buying cheaper wheels or better to rent? I don't know if I answered the wheel question. Oh, I did. Okay. I said best tire by far, in all caps, is the Continental Grand Prix 4002 S's. Grand Prix 4002S. They are super fast and also puncture resistant. Pair with latex tubes if you want crazy speed. And then on the wheels question, and the question again is it worth buying cheaper wheels or better to rent aero race wheels? And I said, best to train often on the same wheels you want to race on. then there's no handling surprises and crashes on race day. Invest in great wheels and enjoy them all the time. So I have Zip. I have a Zip 404 front, a Zip 808 rear that I got 15 years ago, and they are incredible. And if they start sounding kind of weird or whatever, you can get the bearings redone, and they're just amazing. And then on race day, I don't have weird wheels on the front that are going to affect my handling. I also almost always race with a disc on the back, a wheel cover that turns the rear into a disc, and so I train on that too. And when I go out and race, the bike handles exactly like it does in training all the time. And if you buy high quality wheels, then first off, your training is going to feel amazing because you're riding high quality wheels all the time. And really, honestly, the training is the fun part more than anything. You spend all those hours training, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours training, and then why spend it on crap, you know? Oh, Emily just texted me. They just picked up the packets and they're deciding on whether to go to the zoo. I was born in Ohio, in Cincinnati, and I don't need to go cruise around and everything, see everything. I've done a bunch of this stuff, so they're going to go check out all this stuff. Okay, the next thing is I'm back at the hotel while they're picking up packets and scoping out the race site. And we still have 2 days until the race, so I'm going to do that tomorrow. And next question. What was your pace per 100 yards, I guess, when you started swimming? When did you start to make these gains? I made a bunch of gains in swimming recently. Okay, so there's two different answers to that. And this is from Don M. Roxco. And the problem is there's there might be three answers to that question. Okay, I was on swim team. My parents put me on swim team when I was a kid, when I was 9. And the summer league swim team, not these year-round swim teams that are ultra competitive, but there was something about the way that I swam that I progressed pretty quickly and was doing really well. And I was first place in a lot of swimming stuff, but it's just summer swim league. It would be like summer league baseball or something like that, you know. But it is around Houston, and Houston is a big swimming city with lots of swim team competitions and stuff. And so I was one of the better swimmers on summer swim league. Now, growing up doing that is still not as hard as like high school swim team. And when I tried out for high school swim team, I only made junior varsity. There was varsity and junior varsity. It's a huge high school. And junior varsity, I was in 9th grade, and in practices I had trouble, all of us did, consistently swimming longer distances with flip turns being mandatory. Our coach would hit us with a with a kickboard. We'd bop us on our heads if we came up, you know, not doing flip turns and stuff. And I struggled, and so I guess my whole point of that is I started swimming when I was 9, but when I was 13, 14, I was still having trouble swimming longer distances well. And I was fast-ish, and I don't know what those times would be. Probably 130s, 140s or something like that. And then that year on swim team, on JV swim team, fixed me on swimming, doing flip turns, which speeds you up consistently, and also pacing yourself out, doing longer, bigger sets, and we would swim for an hour and a half, probably. And that fixed me a bunch. And then I went off to military school, and that's where we really started swimming harder, faster. I was on varsity. I was swim team captain my junior year at military school. And then my senior year, I went back to public high school again, And this is that huge public high school again, and then really started working even harder and did a year's worth of super duper swimming. And I think that's when I got my 50-yard freestyle down to like 20 seconds, 21 seconds, something like that. Probably 20.5. And I was a crazy fast sprinter. But that's still different than doing 100 yards on a continuous basis. So then 10 years later, when I got into triathlon, I got out of shape and everything, but I was surfing and mountain biking and stuff, but I got out of swim shape. I got my, with just consistent swimming, I got my hour-long 100-yard pace. If I was doing 100s for an hour, I got that down to a 125, 126. And my goal was, it just happens to be really convenient, to swim an Ironman. That's the same time to swim an Ironman at an hour, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. And I think that's great. That's as fast as a lot of people will ever swim it. And that's all you really need to be able to swim in triathlon. And but what happened recently was a couple years ago, I broke my arm. A year and a half ago, I broke my arm, and I in my elbow joint, and it's all messed up, and it's still not right. But I did around that time, I'd gotten a drag chute. A drag chute is super cheap. It ties around your waist and then drag behind you. It's like a foot wide parachute. And the one I got is the Finis, Finis one. It's blue, and it's a solid piece of fabric that, you just drag behind you. And that thing is it's like swimming uphill. It finds watts for you. And then those doses of harder with the drag chute, I was using it to work on my elbow to try to increase my my therapy for my arm to try to become a better swimmer. And that doses of that, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of drag chute, and those are long compared to what most people think you would use a drag chute for. Drop my swim time down to a 120 per 100-yard pace, and if I swam for an hour consistent, and that is a 56-minute Ironman pace, and that's in zone 2. That is just cruising along. And the reason that this works is because what I learned this from, and we're going to talk about on next episode, is sweet spot training, is where you go kind of near your threshold, your FTP on the bike, and it's like 90% of your FTP. And then when you do that, doses of that is just enough to improve you, but also not exhaust you, like beat you up so bad, so that you can do it again in a couple of days, and do it again in a couple of days, and do it in a couple of days. And you're constantly stepping up your ability. But the thing is they need to be longer doses. They need to be 5 to 20 minutes, and several of them, and of the sustained harder effort. And then that stimulates muscle growth perfectly. And you're doing it while doing the thing that you're going to be racing in, doing the motions that you're going to be racing in. So that activates your neuromuscular abilities, and it ups your tempo, because the watts are being presented to you at a faster rate. Then you can work on a higher cadence, which also cleans up your stroke, and it makes everything easier when you actually are racing. And so that brought up the drag chute thing. So in spite of having a broken elbow and I can't straighten out my left arm, which makes my swim form worse, using a drag chute for 5, 10, 15 minutes at a time during my swims, nonstop, I actually improved my swim to faster than I'd ever swam before, which is really unusual, but that's the way a lot of improvements actually happen. Next question. Your opinion on the best open water goggles by Jason Boyles. He asked that, and I said the Clear Cayman by Aquasphere goggles. I like those the best. Goggles can be a very personal thing, but clear goggles where the frames are clear and everything, that improves your vision a little bit. You can still see even more around. And then I've found over time that if you have shaded goggles, like then it kind of makes it hard to see the buoys. And if they're clear, then they're clear, and what you see is what you see. And you can just endure it for that half Ironman or Ironman swim or Olympic distance swim, no problem. Tinted lenses can kind of hide things, and you need to see everything super clearly. And so clear goggles ended up being the best. That's my choice after all these years. And the Caymans by Aquasphere are big. So you get a wide field of vision so that you can, because you are open water swimming, you need to see what's going on around you so you don't get clocked in the head. And then also they're softer than the old school goggles. And so if you get kicked in the face or punched in the face, it's a softer impact. And then also you can wear them for an hour and they don't bother you anywhere near like what harder goggles do. They're soft. They're really cool. To take care of them, get out of the water, and I use Ultra Swim shampoo, and that gets chlorine off of you. Well, I also definitely rinse my goggles and my swimsuit off, and then I try to get a little bit of that shampoo on them as well to kind of eat up the chlorine, and it seems to preserve the goggles and your swimsuit a little bit longer. So I don't get my swimsuit splitting down the middle like it did that one time, and me walking through the hotel lobby with my swimsuit split down the back, which I talked about on a previous episode. What do you eat on the bike during an Ironman? This is from Cross77. Just gels. And the thing is, this is a tough area because you need to practice on the bike what you're going to do on an Ironman. And what you do on an Ironman is not necessarily healthy. So you're kind of stuck with, it's a tough answer. Every time you try to go super healthy, then you don't have good workouts. And if you don't have good workouts, then what's the point of you working out? So I've never really been able to find a good balance of this, but yeah, gels really do work. I said safest bet is 2 or more gels per hour, and which you pre-mixed into your water bottle. So you go ahead and open the gels up, squeeze them out into your water bottle, shake them up. They mix into your water really fast. And then you've got 200, 300, 400 calories per water bottle, and it's already diluted in the water, because if you don't dilute them, then they're really sharp and painful on your stomach. And then you sip the bottle. I sip every 5 minutes. I take a little sip. And I use clear water bottles so that I can see how much I've taken and how much I've got left for the hour, so I don't overdo it at any time. I will not race without clear water bottles. I don't understand how people have fuel inside aero bottles in the front, between their arms, on the front of the bike, anywhere on the bike that aren't clear, so they can't see how much that they've taken and how much they've got left, so they make sure they're not overdoing it or underdoing it. And then Cross wrote back and said, I think I may need some real food to avoid bonking, though. And, well, the reason you need calories to avoid bonking. It's super easy to digest calories to avoid bonking. So that goes back to, that's liquid food. But to avoid upset stomach or feeling that hollow feeling in the stomach, a lot of people feel like they need real food. And I said, yeah, Amrita bars are actually a little nibble of some solid food every once in a while. Gordo Byrne mentioned eating some nuts on rare occasion to put some fat and some solid food in your stomach and some salt in your stomach to keep your stomach busy. It doesn't take much, but people will, they'll feel hollow. And if you just do liquid calories, your stomach's gone. Your stomach goes, man, it's been a long time since you've stretched me out with some real food. And I feel, so now I'm going to make you think that you're hungry, even though you're not. So, Amrita bars or some kind of easy to digest bars. I mentioned Lara bars. Something with a little bit of fiber and a little bit of volume to it, but not much, just very, very little. So again, nuts are kind of like that. but not very much, just a tiny little bit. You can put that kind of stuff in a Ziploc and tap into it on occasion out of your back jersey pocket. All right, we have... Oh, somebody said Manic Defense on Twitter asked, can you make us a video of what swimming with a drag chute looks like? And so I guess I'm going to have to do that. I haven't had an opportunity to do that since I answered the question. I said, sure. But the question was, how do you do turns and stuff with a drag chute? Well, you do them just like you would doing regular swimming. And it just takes a few turns, and you start to figure it out. But I guess what's going on here is most people can't imagine using something for more than like a lap or two in swimming. And that's the problem with all of us that grew up on swim team is because your swim team races are just 50 to 100 yards usually. I mean, it's rare for you to go longer than that. Then we never use tools for very long. We never use an instrument for very long. So how in the world would you do a kick set for 20 minutes? You know? And it's like, well, you do it, but you do it, you don't have to do it very hard because it's the 20 minutes of it, the 10, 20 minutes of it that at a slightly harder effort that is massively improving. But we only know we're really hard or not at all. So how would you use a drag chute for 10 minutes, for 20 minutes? It just sounds crazy. And it's like, well, the first time you do it, you go about 3 minutes and you think you're going to die. And then you get smarter and go, hey, let me find the gear in between what I was doing here and go a little bit easier and try to stretch it out. And then you learn, okay, this is the appropriate speed. This is the appropriate effort. So yeah, I'll have to make a video of that, of how to do flip turns or open turns with a drag chute. Audio version of it right now is you approach the wall on one side of the lane, and right before you get to the wall, you move over. So the drag chute's dragging behind you. It still stays on the right side, but you've moved over to the left, and then when you push off from the wall, you don't bump into that drag chute because it's still hanging out on the right side of the wall, which is the opposite, the right side of the lane. And now you're swimming back on the left side of the lane, your other right, and it's not in your way anymore. So, power meter. Mike Boone asks at Boondocks power meter or smart trainer if you had to choose. So, a smart trainer is one of these trainers that has a power meter in it. So basically, if you had $1,000 and that you're going to spend on yourself, would you get a power meter or an indoor only power meter? A power meter always on your bike or an indoor only power meter? And I said that you would get a regular power meter on your bike that you can use all the time. Then what you can do is you can use it out on your training rides, outdoors if you go outdoors. Then you get a dumb trainer, which is $150, $200, $300 indoors, and you use the power meter that's built into your bike now as the power meter when you train indoors. And then you also have a power meter on your bike for when you race, and it's using it during the race. It's using it during training to tell you what is good training and what you should do in a race. And then during the race, if you don't have a power meter, then how are you supposed to know what you should do and what you should be doing, because your power meter is sitting back at home in your smart trainer? So yeah, I've done a power meter on my bike for years. I'm getting a smart trainer with a power meter built in it coming up in a month or two, and we'll review that and stuff. But I mean, that's after years of having one built in my bike, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Okay. Question is, if it normally takes you 20 seconds to go the length of a pool without a drag chute, I've tested this. How long does it take you with a drag chute? And it's not twice as long. It's about 1.5 times as long. So if it took you 20 seconds, then it would take 30 seconds, maybe 35 seconds to go the length of the pool. So it doesn't quite turn a 25-yard pool into a 50-yard pool, but it's close. It turns a 25-yard pool into, if you're wearing a drag chute, into a 40-yard pool. It's something else, man. It's really, really cool. Okay, and then the question was how many grams of carbohydrate per hour while biking, and this is from Slant Bjorn, and that really depends on your metabolism and how much you've learned to stomach. Big time pros I've had on the show will talk about 400 calories per hour, which is 200 grams. No, that's 100 grams of you multiply it by 4 per hour. And so let's do it in grams, and then let's do it in calories. So grams, 20 to what's 20 times 4? Is that 80? No, I mean 50. Yeah, that's it. 50 grams of carbohydrates per hour is the low end, and that's if you're really sugar sensitive and you don't need that much, but you're really playing with fire. But also, it's smarter to underfuel a little bit. Then you can always add more than if overfueling and then getting sick. And then people that are really, really fast and that can slam a ton of carbs and they've trained up to it can do 100 or more grams of carbohydrate per hour. And that's a lot. I can do like 300, 350 and feel pretty good. And that's a mix of maltodextrin powder and maple syrup and salt stick, which we'll get to in a second. And I feel actually just fine. A lot of it's dependent on water, how much water you put in there. Okay, and then in calories, that's gosh, I was hoping I was saying just a second ago, it's 100 up to 100 grams of carbohydrates. In calories, that's like 200 to 400 calories per hour in carbohydrate. And the thing is you kind of need to bank that stuff on the bike so that when you start running, that you've got plenty on you. Would you recommend, this is Keith Wilson, would you recommend joining a CrossFit class for Ironman training or just do a weekly strength session? CrossFit, I like to call injury fit or cross injury. The intensity and the pace that they do those things is really high, and the CrossFit seems to be an end unto itself, where really the whole point is to lift weights. And you're already getting your aerobic fitness in with training aerobically, doing this run, bike, swim. So no, I don't recommend CrossFit. I don't have anything against CrossFit, except there seems to be a high rate of injury because you're trying to do things as fast as you can, and doing that with heavy weights or even medium weights is kind of pushing your luck. And the where if you just do a strength session on occasion and you focus on the areas that you need to improve, you get the same thing. So I would, and also you're trying to reduce stress. All this training is a lot of stress with triathlon, and CrossFit is stressful, like it's, intense. And I like just going to the gym and lifting a few weights, focusing on the areas that I know would improve me, like doing some quads or lats, listening to just kind of mellow music and just like improving those areas, and then get out of there and then go for a jog or something like that. But again, and I have noticed that doing weightlifting for sure makes you a much better runner. It really strengthens up your legs. And so when you go really long running, you don't fatigue as fast because your legs can take that damage. Okay, that is it for the Twitter questions. We have how to get water out of a wheel next. But first, let's mention another sponsor. We got Salt Stick. Where did you go? I want to say it right. Let's see. Salt Stick. Okay. You can go to saltstick.com/ZenTri, and with the password ZenTri, again, you can get 25% off? Holy cow. With that discount code. That is only for people that listen to the podcast. I can't put that out there for anybody except for fans of the show that listen to this show. So, man, don't miss out. Go use it. You can take other salt supplements if you want, but Salt Stick is the one that has an exact match for what you sweat out. It doesn't just have sodium, it has potassium and magnesium, all kinds of stuff in there that you sweat out at the same ratios that you sweat it out. And therefore, you're putting stuff back in that you sweat out. It's super cool. In a study, athletes that took Salt Stick finished a 70.3 race and an average of 26 minutes faster than the other control group. Holy cow. So when I make my own mix, I bought maltodextrin in bulk. That way it's super cheap. And then I take maple syrup. And if I'm doing a long bike ride and I want to feel good when I finish, it's not 300 calories, but it's about 250 calories of maltodextrin powder. And then I do 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, which is about another 100 calories. And so now I'm up to 350 calories. And then right now I'm putting in 1 capsule per hour of Salt Stick. I could put in more. I could put in 2 if I wanted to. I might try that. And that's 1 bottle. And then I make another bottle. I make another bottle. I make a bottle per hour. And it's so cool because Salt Stick, I can just open up the capsules and squeeze out like this with my finger. I'm doing it right now with my finger. I can roll the capsule in my hand, and the electrolytes spill out into my water, into my fuel bottle, and then I just shake it up, and then boom, I've got my fuel bottle for the hour, and I feel amazing. I was telling Emily the other day, I go, man, I think I've got... She's not a man. But I go, man, I think I've got my fueling worked out. I take this, and I just feel fantastic. And it's got everything in it that I need. I love the maple syrup. It's got a mix of starch and then simple sugars and then my electrolytes. Boom. Love it. Absolutely love it. Oh, then I take matcha powder, which is green tea powder, which is good for your teeth. And it makes you feel good. And I mix that in as well, like a teaspoon, I think, per hour of matcha powder. And that's my fuel. It looks cool because it's green. My fuel is like this greenish brown. That's how you know you're being healthy, is when your food looks like something that should be going the other direction. But the discount code is... well, the password is ZenTri. And that, again, gets you into saltstick.com. Go there and then use ZenTri. And if you want to find a store locator, if you want to buy it in person at a store, you can go shopsaltstick.com, because this discount with ZenTri 25 or ZenTri is 25% off. Is only good in the United States. Sorry guys, I can only do what I can do. All right, let's get back to our question about water in the wheels. So we were, this has happened twice now, traveling with bikes on the back of vehicles in the rain. I guess you could be out on a long ride in the rain. I saw this posted on Slow Twitch recently too, so I know, that's why I keep mentioning it, is because I know other people experience this. These wheels that have deep dish aero rims, so they have a hollow cavity in them. After being in the rain for a while, you can notice that there's water sloshing around in the wheel. It's really weird. So, what's going on? Well, somehow, some way, water gets in either through the spoke holes. If you've got flow wheels, like these wheels where it's just a fairing, it's not structural carbon, it can get into the spoke holes where the spokes run through the fairing. Or if not that way, then where the valve comes through the carbon, water somehow can run into the rim right there. So that it gets in the rim that way. Well, why didn't it come back out? Well, gravity's pulling it down, and the underside of the spoke hole, where the tube is coming through, well, if your tire's inflated, then it has pressure up against the bottom of that spoke hole. It's creating a seal against the underside of the spoke hole, and the water doesn't have anywhere to go. So once I figured this out, that the water's not in the tire, it's not in the tube, that would be crazy, but it's actually in the rim, what you have to do, one way to do it is you take the wheel off the bike, and then you take the tire and the tube all the way off the bike. And this is what I did last time. All the way off the rim, I mean. And this is what I did last time. And yeah, all the water came out and it was great. But I had to take partially the tire and tube off the rim. And by the way, the reason you want to get the water out of there is you're paying an insane amount of money for lightweight wheels, and now you've added one of the heaviest elements on earth, which is water. You want that water out of there. And I guess it could get funky or something like that over time, get gross. But anyway, and that'll really affect you when you're accelerating out of turns, by the way, the heavier weight of the wheels. So what I figured out this time, because driving up here to Ohio, we went through some rainstorms, some good rain, and we took the bikes off the back, and guess what? Slosh, slosh, slosh. 2 out of the 4 bikes have water in the rims now. I'm like, oh, man. And so I tried something. I go, man, I do not want to take the tire and tube all the way or partially off the rim to get this done. Because every time you take a tire and tube off, or at least a tire, with a tire lever, you're running the risk of pinching the tube, and you're putting it back on. You're running the risk of pinching the tube and tearing it with the tire lever and then causing a flat. So this time, what I did is I took the wheel, Kai's front wheel, off of his bike, and I deflated the tube, but I did not take it off. And now, with no air pressure, I did not take the tire off either. With no air pressure on the underside of the rim hole where the valve goes through, the water, you do it so the valve is towards the ground, is at the lowest part of the wheel. So water is down where the valve is, right? Gravity's all pulling that down. So then you take your fingers and you pinch the valve and the tube and the tire all at once, and you pull it downwards towards the center of the earth with one hand. And now the water doesn't have anything holding it inside the rim anymore, and it runs out. Now it'll run out, some out of the tube and tire, and then some out onto your hand and stuff. And so then you turn the tire on its side, you get an angle going, and you start squeezing the tire and tube and working your way around a little bit. And eventually you can get all that water to come back out because it's settled now into the tire. If you don't do that, then when you reinflate the tube and tire, it's probably going to just, with pressure, push it right back up into the rim again. But anyway, it worked. I got the water out of the rim with no more than taking the wheel off and deflating the tire, the tube and tire, and leaving them on the rim, but just doing some shenanigans with pulling the valve, giving the valve some space so the water could run out of the rim and out onto the ground. Okay, now, that's kind of hard to explain, isn't it? That's almost video worthy. We have an email from somebody with some Flow wheels. From Lars. Lars, he loves his exclamation points, which is good. He said, dude, exclamation point. I had to share. I just got my first set of Aero wheels. I went with Flow Cycling. That's FLO. They've been on the show, actually, the owners of that. Flow Cycling 60 front and 90 rear. So that's millimeters, by the way, how deep the dish is. The rims are. Can't freaking wait to try them on my first 70.3 Steelhead. Stoked! Exclamation point. Also, thank you for an absolutely awesome podcast. Tons of helpful insights using UCAN. Okay, so UCAN is a slow starch. We have a discount code for that. We'll read that here in a second. And Hornet Juice. Hornet Juice is an amino acid powder that ups your fat burning, releases fat from your body so that you can have more energy. Oops, back. I just got a call from Emily. They're done with packet pickup and checking out the the course for today. It's pouring rain, but they're on their way to the Cincinnati Zoo. Okay, Horcan, Horcan and unit juice. Okay, all the time now. Both are great. You feel the difference. For sure you do, man. That's awesome stuff. I wanted to ask you, though, what is the best heart rate range to be in to increase metabolic efficiency to burn more fat? Should it be all zone 2 or zone 3 as well to burn fat at a higher heart rate? Anyway, I just wanted to share the Stoke, exclamation point, NB, and I'm not sure what NB stands for, but exclamation mark. He wrote again with an exclamation point. Cheers, Lars. Okay, this is really interesting because I heard something the other day that was a really good saying. Yeah, you can get really metabolically efficient in zone 2, but zone 2 you're not really pushing yourself, and the more metabolically efficient you get, actually you do burn body fat in zone 3. It doesn't completely switch off. If once you get metabolically efficient, you're burning fat at higher heart rates, a higher percentage of fat at higher heart rates. So you're burning it at zone 3. So why not train a little bit like that, right? And then you start getting zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5 are the 5 different heart rate zones. So zone 1 is, zone 0 is just sitting there. Zone 1 is like walking. Zone 2 is you're moving, but the pace is slow enough where you can kind of hold a conversation with somebody, and it's a wide range. Then once you break into zone 3, that's where you start getting down to, if you're going to speak a sentence, you have to pause during the sentences to catch air. Zone 4, you can only do one word at a time. In zone 5, you can't even speak. Zone 5, you can only do for like 15 seconds or something like that. Zone 4, you can do for 5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. Zone 3, you can do long time. But zone 2, you can do for a super, super long time. So all this stuff preaches that to increase your fat metabolism, do zone 2 all the time, no matter what. And it's like, well, yeah, but then you're going to get really good at going really slow. So how do you step up your game to the next level is, mix in some zone 3. Those are those sweet spots. Zone 3, kind of almost zone 4. That's that sweet spot training where you're pushing the pace a little bit. So you're kind of scaring your body into going, man, we better up our game. And the really cool saying I heard the other day was raising your ceiling. And in this case, we're talking about your ceiling is your top end potential, right? Pushing up your top end a little bit by training more towards your top end doesn't just lift your ceiling, it lifts your whole house. So think about that. I'm living in a house with 10-foot ceilings, and it's one story, right? And it's got a 10-foot ceiling in it. And what happens if I raise my ceiling to 11 foot? Well, I've lifted my whole house. And what that does is it also raises the foundation. It raises your zone 2 up a little bit. And what is raising up is your speed at zone 2. So it raises up your easy speed a little bit too. So yes, man, I definitely recommend doing zone 3. And for those workouts, you can add in just a little bit more carb, or you could do lower. I mean, you got to experiment and play around with it, you know. There's this whole thing now, instead of being low carb all the time, and I actually like this a lot, is you do super low carb sometimes. And what I've become is opportunistic. If I'm at a point in time or a place where I'm not that hungry, and it's going to be a long time till I eat, and I've worked out and I've burned through all my carbs, I take advantage of that and kind of fast a little bit until I feel bonky. And then what that does is it teaches your metabolism to be more resourceful and start pulling fat as fuel. And then you just do that every once in a while. Then you're building up your resourcefulness for metabolizing fat. And then when you're out working out, then you don't need as much sugar because you've been exposing yourself with doses of needing and using fat to get by. It can be during workouts even. It can be just sitting around at work, sitting around at home. But then those doses of, so let's say you're doing it during a workout. That means, hey, this workout, I don't really feel like fueling all that much. I'm not sure I really need that much. And, I feel like I'm close to bonking. Dude, get bonky with it. Ride it out, man, and bonk yourself a little bit. Because what I've noticed is if you do low blood sugar and get bonky during a workout, guess what? Your next workout, it happens a little bit later. You can go farther before you bonk. And then your next workout, you can go a little bit farther and go a little bit farther. So you can train yourself to use less blood sugar and more body fat to get the job done. But the thing is you don't want to do it all the time, because apparently if you do low carb all the time, then you start messing up your metabolic system, your hormones. It's just like too much stress on your body. And it would be like working out all the time, right? You don't work out 24/7. You work out in doses, and then that improves you. And so, you don't have to be zone 2 all the time, because how are you ever going to get faster? You'll get faster up to a point, but then you'll build your 1-story house, but then that's it. So how do you add another floor? You got to lift your ceiling a little bit, lift your ceiling. So do some of that zone 3, zone 4. On occasion, if you pay attention, if you do the Zen thing and pay attention to how your body responds, and how hard it is to work out a few days later, then you'll know how much to do. And again, next episode, we'll talk about sweet spot intervals and how that ends up being really, really, really smart, because you can get back to doing working out quickly. And it seems to be like the nicest ratio of hard work to recovery that most people have found out there. All right. Let's mention some ways to support the show. Where's our UCAN? Oh, UCAN, we have a discount code. If you buy this Super Starch, which is a long-acting, slow-acting, very, very slow-acting starch. So your body has just enough carbs in it to be happy, but not enough to shut down your fat burning. That's the stuff. That's how UCAN works. It's actually really cool. If you take in too much sugar, then your body goes, I don't need no fat. I'm going to just use sugar. And then you turned off your fat burning. So UCAN is a stuff, UCAN, that is your carb, but it's a super slow burning carb, so you don't get a sugar spike. And then your body won't shut off fat burning. It's pretty cool. And we have a discount code. If you go to UCAN's website, you can order it and get 15% off with discount code ZenTri. Blam! I like it for swimming because it's a long-acting, slow-acting carb. And when you're swimming, say in an Ironman or something like that, you can't stop and fuel. I mean, I guess you could, but in swimming, if you stop to fuel, you're going 0 miles per hour. If you're running, you can fuel. If you're biking, you can fuel while you're going, so you can drip feed stuff in. But you can't drip feed stuff in swimming without coming to a complete stop every single time. So why not take something that you can take once before you swim and then have energy throughout the swim? And that's how you do it. You can 15% off with ZenTri. Okay, also, shout out to Sunto, and Sunto makes the Spartan Ultra and the Spartan wristwatch. Heart rate built into the wristwatch. Super cool. Been using those. And then if you want to support the show, you like all these tips, how to go long, how to do it smart, all this years of experience doing this stuff, then you can support the show yourself in person by getting some Hornet Juice or doing one-time donations. So on ZenTriathlon.com, the website, ZenTriathlon.com, on the left-hand side is PayPal buttons if you want to do a one-time donation or do a recurring donation. Either way, you do that. I've got your email. You get my email, and I also will answer your questions if you send them in. I feel like I owe you if you send in a donation. And sometimes I'll read your stuff on the air, and I will read your name on the air if you donate. And it's cool because you can do it one time, or you can do a recurring. You can set it and forget it, which I love. Or you can, do it one time, which is pretty cool. And also, with your donation, if you have a comment, a lot of times I'll read that on the show. Oh, shoot, I almost forgot to mention the donations for this episode. Like I said, you can donate, and I'll read your name on the podcast. And here we go. Hun Chu, Tanya Roy, John Mulan, Katie Jo Favia, James Godek, Peter Salzin, Matthew Heinz, Matthew Frois, Allison Frutos, Matthew Holmer, and this is interesting. Matthew sent in a one-time donation, and I do this for $50, one-time donation. I'll answer all your email questions for about $50 worth of my time, which is a few hours. I'll sit down and it's like 1 hour, but I kind of stretch it out. I enjoy it. So I'll answer your specific questions by email back to you, and till we get to the bottom of it, till you're happy with your answers. So if you're interested in doing that, let me know. My email is texafornia@gmail.com, TEXAFORNIA, any kind of triathlon training question, racing. Anyway, let's go back to this. M. Webb, Spiros Fetsis, Curtis Fossen, and Joseph Diber, and Joseph Rogalski. There was another Brett in here. Not Brett Hoyer, but a different Brett that I thought I had. But anyway, thanks very much for your donations to help support the show. I do the best I can because of people like you. All right, let's get back to it. And then the other way is Hornet Juice, I mentioned earlier, is on the right-hand side. It's an amino acid powder. It's got a little bit of carbs in it, but it's mostly an amino acid powder that your body, when you eat it, your body goes, whoa, holy cow, it's a time to burn some body fat. It's really a trip. It makes you feel like a diesel engine. It's absolutely crazy. You mix it in with your fuel, and it is it's a whole bunch of different amino acids, but it's in a ratio, and it's proprietary, of this amino acid at, like 30% this, 60% or 15% that, and 20% this, right? And that ratio of amino acids signals your body it's time to burn fat. And what's really cool is it's made in a lab as a replica of what is in the Japanese killer hornet's body. And the Japanese killer hornet is the longest flying, highest power to weight ratio animal in the world. It's this huge hornet that's heavy, and it flies these crazy long distances, and it does so by metabolizing its body fat that it stores up by eating this same ratio of amino acids. And it works. It's absolutely crazy. I get these emails all the time from people that are like, whoa, you don't feel like a buzz like from caffeine. You just feel at hour 2, hour 3, hour 4 in your bike ride, like no fade. It's really, really cool. So I absolutely love it. I've been using it forever, and I use it on my longer bike rides. And also you can take it, just mix it in some water, or I actually kind of like it with Diet Coke for some reason. It's got kind of a grapefruit flavor to it. And then, so kind of like as a snack, to turn up your fat burning after a workout. That thing where I was telling you about where you want to go like low carb and metabolize body fat and train your body to do that. And up your metabolism, your fat burning, that would be a perfect thing to do for it. So anyway, that's on the right-hand side. And that's you can order a 10-pack or a 20-pack of Hornet Juice. The order comes to me. I get your name. I send you back an email going, hey, what is up? And then I tell Hornet Juice, which is based out of New Zealand. And then Hornet Juice in New Zealand, I give them your address, and then they ship it to you. So it's got to come, when you put your order in, it takes a day for me to get it and process it onto them. And then they send it to you. And the downside is it's got to come from New Zealand by regular mail, so it takes like 10 days. So that is quite a while. But the upside is you get a package from New Zealand with all their cool stampage on there, which is kind of neat. And you also get an email from me saying, hey, your Hornet Juice is on its way. Because what a lot of people do with that email is they turn right back around and go, hey, thanks, Brett. By the way, what tire pressure should I run in my bike? I'm like, oh, here we go. And but I love answering these questions because I want to see more and more people doing triathlon. If the more people we try, long distance triathlon is or being successful in any kind of triathlon distance, but especially the longer distance, there's certain things that if you do these certain things, you'll have a great time and be able to go really far and really long. But so many of these things seem to be a mystery to us. It was to me when I first started out. And the more I get that information out there, then the more triathletes that we can have that are happy and healthy. And we're just overrunning our local communities with just happy, super healthy, lean, fast, go-getter, getting things done, successful triathletes. Then the more facilities that we will build all around us, our towns will build to cater to us. More pools, more safer bike routes, bike lanes, more signs up that say watch out for cyclists, because there's more cyclists, because we all know how to do this stuff now. More running paths, more triathlons, more triathlon teams for kids, because this stuff isn't a mystery anymore. It's actually totally doable, and the lifestyle about what it takes to do it, we've got it all figured out. Because a lot of us do have it figured out, and we just want to share it with everybody so that everybody can be doing it, and then everybody's happier, and the whole world is a happier place. That's where we want to go. That's my goal, all right? Oh, man, that's my manifesto. So that's why I do the show, and that's why your support really, really, really helps. It's not for me. It's not for you. It's for all of us, so we can have a better world, okay? So next episode, we are going to talk about sweet spot intervals, and also I'm going to talk about normalized power and what that means on your bike computer, and then also your variability index and why you want that as low as possible. It's so interesting, and you can manipulate that to your own benefit, that I actually, on a race, I got my variability index to be below 1, which is theoretically impossible. But just to show you can do it. Yeah, that's how much you're surging. You don't want to surge during a triathlon because that burns you up prematurely. You want to be, if you're going to surge at all, you want it to be on the run at the finish line. So we're going to talk about that, how to manipulate that, and how to get more results out of that. And then also we'll be done with this kids nationals here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'll bet I'll have some audio from that, some interviews with some of the kids and parents, and see where that goes. All right. So everybody stay safe out there, work the uphills, cruise the downhills. That's the fastest way to finish. And keep the rubber side down. Out. Hey. How would you like to become an endurance monster? Get coached for your next big endurance event by yours truly, Coach Brett from ZenTri. For only $199 a month, I build you a completely custom triathlon training plan using the industry's gold standard training platform. With Training Peaks, you can easily go online, see what your workouts are, then upload your results seamlessly that very same day. Then I build your next training block based on how you've been doing. I review every single workout and provide comments on what I'm seeing that you've done great and where we need to improve. If you want to get faster, better, stronger, and be able to go longer, don't do it alone. Reach out to me and we can work together with my depth of experience and get you to the finish line as fast as possible. Send me an email, texafornia@gmail.com. That's TEXAFORNIA, texafornia@gmail.com, and put coaching in the subject line. See you at the start line.